Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the most unbelievable survival stories to ever come out of the Second World War. Seriously, it's a tale of absolute chaos in the skies, a really strange moment of mercy, and a fall that, by all logic, no one should have survived.
So let's just set the scene here. We are way up high, thousands of feet above Nazi-occupied Europe, and Eugene Moran is in what a lot of people call the loneliest and most dangerous position on a bomber, the tail gunner. He's in this tiny, isolated metal and plexiglass bubble at the very, very back of the plane. His whole job is to watch their six and defend against anything coming up from behind.
And this mission, it was no milk run. The target was Bremen, a supercritical industrial hub for the German war machine. And because of that, you better believe it was ringed with anti-aircraft guns and absolutely swarming with Luftwaffe fighter squadrons. Over 300 American bombers were sent on this raid, and yeah, the Germans were waiting for them.
About 10 minutes out from the target, the inevitable call crackles over the intercom. It's the signal every single crewman dreaded. The fight was on. Now, German pilots have learned to attack the B-17 formations head-on, a terrifying direct approach designed to fly right at the bomber's weakest point.
The first wave of attackers flying these big Bf-110 heavy fighters weren't just using cannons. No, they unleashed barrages of these 21-centimeter mortar rockets. Now, these things weren't designed for pinpoint accuracy. Think of it more like a giant shotgun blast, meant to explode right in the middle of the tight bomber formations to cripple planes or force them to scatter.
For the crew, the world just dissolved into total mayhem. You've got rockets and fighters coming from the front, then swarms of other fighters hitting them from behind. And as they got closer to Bremen, the sky filled up with those dirty black puffs of 88mm flak shells exploding all around them. The intercom was just a constant storm of shouting, as every gunner, including Gene, desperately tried to track and shoot at anything that moved.
Incredibly, the Rikki-Tikki Tavi makes it through that first wave of hell. The bombardier yells bombs away, the plane lurches upward, suddenly lighter, and they bank for home. As the flak starts to thin out, you can just imagine this wave of relief washing over the crew. They could breathe again.
A damage report comes in. Yeah, they've got some holes, but nothing critical. All 4 engines are still humming. It really feels like they've cheated death. Someone shouts over the intercom the words everyone is thinking. We're gonna make it. And for one brief, beautiful moment, they actually believe they're in the clear.
But that hope? It's just instantly shattered. Before the echo of those words can even fade, a new cry goes up. A fresh swarm of German fighters appears out of nowhere, determined to get revenge for the bombing. This second attack, after the target, was often the deadliest part of any mission.
Under the sheer weight of this new attack, the Rikki-Tikki Tavi takes more and more hits. It starts to lose speed, falling back from the protective cover of the main bomber group. Now, for a B-17, being in formation means survival. It's everything. The combined firepower of dozens of planes creates this deadly field of fire. But on its own, it's a sitting duck.
From his little perch in the tail, Gene Moran watches as the gap between his plane and the rest of the formation just gets wider and wider. The panicked calls start coming over the intercom, and then a final, fateful message. We're being pushed out. They are now completely alone, and the German fighters, seeing their isolated prey, move in for the kill.
Okay, so what happens next is a sequence of events so cinematic and so horrifying it is genuinely hard to believe it's real. The stories here, drawn from Gene's own accounts, are, well, they're incredibly intense. As the fighters swarm the helpless bomber, one of them, a Bf-109, does something really strange. Instead of attacking, it pulls up right alongside Gene's tail position, staying just outside the range of his machine guns. And for a moment, in the middle of all this chaos, Gene Moran locks eyes with the enemy pilot. I mean, can you even imagine this? It's just so surreal. The German pilot makes a gesture. He points directly at Gene. Then he points down, toward the ground. He does it again. He's not being threatening. It seems like he's actually offering Gene a chance to bail out, a sort of warrior's courtesy before the inevitable happens. So Gene is faced with this impossible split-second decision. Does he jump? Is he the only one left? But before he can even begin to process the offer, that temporary truth is just shattered. Someone else on the Rikki-Tikki Tavi, still fighting for their life, opens fire on the German pilot.
And just like that, the choice is made for him. The Bf-109 peels away, and the entire pack of fighters descends on the bomber like wolves. The tail section becomes a hailstorm of shrapnel. Gene is hit again and again, in both arms and the chest, His guns are jammed. The aircraft is being systematically ripped to shreds all around him.
And then it happens. There's this sickening, gut-wrenching groan of tearing metal. Gene feels the floor beneath him get pulled backwards. He grabs onto anything he can, and he watches in just sheer horror as the entire front section of the B-17, the wings, the cockpit, everything tears off and plummets towards the earth, leaving him completely, utterly alone in the sky.
So now just try to picture this. Eugene Morin is falling from over 20,000 feet. That's almost 4 miles straight down, but not with a parachute. No, he's trapped inside the severed tail section of his bomber, which is now just a piece of shrapnel-riddled junk hurtling towards the ground.
According to Gene's own account, the fall was just a disorienting, violent nightmare. The tail section tumbled and spun like a maple seed, and the intense G-forces pinned him against the bulkhead, making it totally impossible to move. He was bleeding badly, a red mist clouding his vision. And in just a tragic twist, the plane's navigator, a guy named Jesse Orison, who had managed to bail out, actually watched that same piece of wreckage fall, never even imagining his friend was still alive inside. The fall from 4 miles up must have seemed like an eternity. But it had to end, and it did, with a violent, final impact that by all rights should have been the end of the story, right then and there.
But it wasn't the end. The tail section crashed through the canopy of a dense forest, and the trees somehow broke its fall just enough. Through a total haze of pain, Gene saw a light and crawled towards it, falling out of the wreckage onto the forest floor. He had 2 broken arms, broken ribs, and a crack in his skull so large he said he could feel his own brain. He was soon captured, and a Serbian doctor in a German POA hospital performed life-saving surgery on him.
Gene Morin would spend the rest of the war as a prisoner, recovering from his catastrophic injuries. Of the 10 men who took off that morning in the Rikki-Tikki-Tavi, only 2 came home. Gene, the tail gunner who fell from the sky, and Jesse Orison, the navigator who watched him fall.
Gene Morin's fall is one of the most astonishing survival stories of any war, period. It just pushes the absolute boundaries of what the human body and spirit can possibly endure. And it leaves us with this powerful question. When you're faced with a completely unsurvivable situation, what is it inside a person that allows them not just to survive, but to live on and tell the tale?